Hello, my name is Father Gregory Pine, and I'm a Dominican friar of the province of St. Joseph, and this is Pints with Aquinas. In this episode, we're going to talk about a potentially sensitive subject, namely, whether Catholics should marry non-Catholics. Now, if you are Catholic married to a non-Catholic, or if your spouse was non-Catholic at the time of your marriage, or if you're a Catholic, dating a non-Catholic and thinking pretty excitedly about the prospect of marriage, or any number of situations, right? This might be a potentially triggering subject, and it might be hard to see how, the things that I say apply to your life. So with a kind of humble acknowledgement that what I say doesn't cover the entirety of the phenomenon, and there's always going to be good anecdotal evidence to the contrary, I thought that we could propose some principles and some arguments so as to better appreciate what the Church teaches and then to better live it out. So let's go. All right, so a good place at which to start would be just to kind of listen to and then interpret the Church's law when it comes to the sacrament of marriage. So let's say you're Catholic and you want to marry a non-Catholic. Specifically, you want to marry a non-baptized person. That is an impediment to marriage, okay? So to attempt to marry somebody who's not baptized, that's an impediment to marriage. That doesn't mean that the impediment can't be overcome, but it does mean that it has to be addressed. So there are a variety of impediments to marriage. Say like one of the parties is an ordained priest, or one of the parties is a consecrated religious, or one of the parties has, is impotent, or one of the parties, the two parties themselves are too closely related, like members of the same family. There are any number of reasons for which there might be an impediment to marriage. But some of them pertain to the natural law, and then some of them pertain only to ecclesiastical law. So this would be an example that pertains only to ecclesiastical law, and it can be dispensed, okay? So it's the type of thing for which you need to ask permission at the outset, but that permission is typically given. Now, when a Catholic marries a non-baptized person, that is not a sacramental marriage, okay? It is a natural marriage. Now, mind you, because one of the parties is Catholic, you are still bound to observe Catholic form, okay? So that'd be, before a minister of the church with two witnesses in the context of a Catholic liturgy, whether that be a mass or a service, okay? But the marriage itself is non-sacramental. Okay, so that's the first situation. The second situation would be when a Catholic wants to marry a baptized non-Catholic, okay? So that'd be like a Protestant or an Orthodox or whatever. Okay, I think that maybe covers it all. So in this case, all right, there is no impediment, all right? We would refer to this as a mixed marriage, all right? But the Church still, in this case, as in the last case, expresses a specific solicitude for the children of the bond, okay? So now, mind you, this is a sacramental marriage. If both parties are baptized, okay, it's a sacramental marriage. You still have to observe Catholic form, but when it comes to raising the children, you have to promise to raise those children Catholic, because the Church wants you to raise up Catholics. Now, only the Catholic party is bound by church law, and so the Catholic party is the one who makes that promise solemnly. But he or she does so in conversation with the future spouse, okay? And the future spouse has to know what he or she is getting into. So this is the kind of like basic shape of the Church's law when it describes the marriage of a Catholic and then a non-Catholic, whether that non-Catholic be non-baptized or baptized. Okay. So then, on the basis of these observations, maybe we can try to make sense of the Church's law in light of what we know about the sacrament of marriage, a kind of theology of marriage. So let's trot out some general principles and then supply some fitting arguments. I think a good way to approach this is in light of what the Church describes as the two ends of marriage. Following St. Thomas Aquinas, I think it's helpful to describe the first as the formal cause of marriage and then the second as the final cause of marriage, which is to say that these two ends are associated hierarchically. They're not just like, I'm going to two destinations, all right? The two ends are aligned, all right? So the first is the mutual support of the spouses, okay? Or like what we can call conjugal friendship, all right? And then the second is the procreation and education of children. And I would submit to you that conjugal friendship or the mutual support of the spouses is for the procreation and education of children. So the first, I would say, is like the formal cause of marriage, the shape of marriage, and then the second is the final cause of marriage or the end of marriage. So given then what the Church teaches, given the Church's law regarding mixed marriages, all right, or disparity of cult, why might she express herself in this way, given these particular goals of marriage? Okay, so let's think about the first, mutual support of the spouses or conjugal friendship. So the goal here is that a man and a woman establish a common life, right? And a common conversation, not in the kind of mundane sense of conversation, but in the embracing sense of conversation, which is to say the fullness of a kind of conjugal sharing. Now, do spouses share every imaginable thing? Nah, not necessarily. Like, you probably have separate toothbrushes. And, this is more of a sensitive issue, but there might be some things that you don't share for reasons of discretion, right? So I've heard the pastoral counsel given that a man who struggles with sins of unchastity, whether those be, like sins of masturbation, or if he were to step outside of the marriage, he's not necessarily responsible for telling the woman about that, because the way in which she would be made to suffer by that revelation would be very acute, right? So he is responsible for repenting, for reforming, and then redoubling his efforts to grow in the love that he promised in his vows. But, okay, this is simply to say that you don't necessarily share every imaginable thing in the context of marriage. But, nonetheless, marriage aims to be a comprehensive sharing, right? So it's a bodily sharing, it's a psychological sharing, it's a spiritual sharing, it's a comprehensive sharing, okay? And in a sacramental marriage, so a marriage between two baptized persons, that sharing takes on a sacramental shape. So the spouses become to each other signs of sanctification. And we know in the case of sacraments that the sign is efficacious, okay? The sign itself saves, or the sign makes the other party holy. So, and you can think about the way in which this is expressed in Ephesians 5. You're to be subordinate to each other out of love of Christ. So wives, submit to your husbands as the church to its head, to Christ. And then husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, which is to say sacrifice for her, lay your body down for her. So in this love, they mediate to each other the grace of the body of Christ, the grace of Christ, simply so called. So they become a sign whereby they make each other holy. All right. So this is the goal of marriage, right? This is the first end of marriage, namely that you sanctify each other in the context of your conjugal life. You coax the good out of each other in a way that's comprehensive and in a way that's sanctifying. And if you don't share wholly and entirely with the other at this highest level, at this most transcendent level, then it attenuates somewhat the capacity of the spouses to be a sign to each other. All right. So it's not just like, while it is true that the signs of the sacraments, right, they cause from the very work having been done, we can register a greater intensity or a greater efficacy in certain signs. So like St. Thomas will say, for instance, there's a couple ways in which you can baptize. You can pour water over the head, or you can immerse the individual in a pool of water. And he says the latter is a fuller sign, and as a result of which it conduces more into our entry into that sign, into the reality which it signifies. So too, I think in the context of marriage, when both parties are baptized Catholics, gung-ho, mediate to each other in the context of their shared life, their common life and common conversation, that gung-hoedness, all right, then it conduces more readily to the salvation of that couple. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's what I said. All right. So let's move on then to what is sometimes called the second end of marriage, what I've called the final cause, or the goal of marriage. And this is the procreation and education of children. You can think about it simply that a man and a woman in the context of marriage have the responsibility to beget a brood of saints, to build up the kingdom, to make their children holy so that they can glorify God and save souls. All right. Now, today in the 21st century, this is very hard, right? It's very hard to lay the groundwork for a happy, healthy, holy family because there are so many enemies of family holiness. There's so many obstacles to attaining that goal that it seems at times very far off, right? Very difficult to attain. There are a lot of people who want to raise your children and they don't want to raise them up as saints. They want to raise them up as something else. And with this recognition, we have to realize that we need all the help that we can get, that we need to have all of the resources, we need all the tools in our toolboxes if we are going to be successful at realizing the goal of this family life, okay? And I think that, obviously, maybe it's not obvious to you, but it seems obvious to me that this is going to work best when both spouses are gung-ho in their pursuit of sanctity, okay? When both are committed to this end for themselves, right? Because they themselves have seen, right? They themselves have tasted, they themselves have experienced, and as a result of which they're much more, willing and able to communicate what they have already partaken of. So I think that you want it such that both parties are real witnesses, okay? They're not just teachers of their children. They're witnesses to their children of the faith that they themselves have found to be so nourishing, right? To be so sanctifying. And you need both spouses to to validate the faith in the eyes of their children. I think it's especially true of a husband, that he needs to validate the faith in the eyes of his children. Otherwise, the children are going to think like, it's just a mom thing. It's just like something that mom does, right? But if both do it, it's like, wow, this is a thing. This is just a thing, simply so called. Okay, and it's not like like a mom thing or a feminine thing, right? This is a dad. This is a masculine thing. This is a human thing, right? This is a saving thing. So in addition to validating the faith, the parents are responsible for manifesting the faith and for communicating the faith, but not as something like, I'm doing this for you. I wouldn't otherwise, but I'm doing this for you. No, in the sense that both spouses are committed, right? Both spouses love the Lord. They're in pursuit of the Lord because they're wholly and utterly convinced that their lives are bound up with this event, with this encounter. And so they love the Lord for the Lord, and then they love the Lord for themselves, and then they love the Lord for kind of by overflow for their children. So the children don't see it as a kind of empty act or a kind of insincere, ungenuine reality. It's something that's, mom and dad, they're on board, okay? And I'd better get on board because I love mom and dad. Mom and dad are the real deal, and I want to be the real deal too. I think about this with respect to my mother, who passed away a few months ago. And on the evening before she died, my one sister kissed my mom on the head and said, Mom, thank you for giving us life. Thank you for giving us the faith. And I think right there, you kind of have encapsulated the dignity of a wife and a mother, right? The dignity of a parent is to give life, and in giving life, to give the faith, right? So that's what we set out to do. And I think that should be a real part of our discernment as we, think about the prospect of getting married. A real part of, how we make the decision when it comes to dating, and how we make the decision when it comes to getting engaged, and all the above, okay? So yeah, when you date, you're dating this person now, and maybe you're in the habit of evangel dating, so that way you can kind of bring them on over the Tiber. But I don't think that you would necessarily, engage in an act, of whether getting engaged or getting married with an eye towards a future that might be, right? You're dating this person now, you're engaged with this person now, you're married to this person now. And I think that when you do that, with the recognition that my real life is here, my real life is not elsewhere, you do so with the mind that what I want is the mutual support of the spouses. What I want is the procreation and education of children. And you're looking at this other person and asking whether or not, this is the person for that great, grand, and lofty goal. So, yeah. That doesn't necessarily cover the whole phenomenon. You may have a beautiful marriage with somebody who is not Catholic, or be contemplating a potentially beautiful marriage with someone who is not Catholic. So there are certain exceptions, and as a result of which, the church's law accommodates those exceptions. But I just mention it so as to introduce it into your discernment, and then to introduce it into your conversations. Boom. That's what I wanted to say. All right. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe to Pints with Aquinas, and then push the bell so that way you get email updates on further things that come from the channel. And then if you haven't yet, please do check out Godsplaining, which is a podcast to which I contribute with 4 other Dominican friars. Cool thing is that we have retreats this summer. Specifically, we have 3 retreats, one for all comers, one for young adults, and then one for a young men's wilderness retreat. So those are the end of July and the beginning of August. You can check them out and apply at godsplaining.org. And then lastly, I wrote a book. It's called Prudence, Choose Confidently, Live Boldly. It's about cool things, and I think you will profit from it. So check it out too. All right, that's all I got. My prayers are for you. Please pray for me, and I will catch you next time on Pints with Aquinas.